I've used it for, goodness, my car at a dealership when they detailed it and it broke. I had a picture on a billboard when I used to model. I got $5,000 check back from a picture on a billboard that I'd never seen before because I have attorneys coast to coast nationwide. I've used it for my insurance. I've used it for my health issues. I've used it for my builder at my house. I mean, I'm like the poster child for prepaid legal, but I never thought to use an attorney before. But now that I don't have to think about it, it gives me power. So all the times before when I said, you know, you're going to hear from my attorney, and I knew I didn't have one, and they knew I didn't have one, now I have one now. And I don't have to check my pocketbook before I check my rights. So it's just awesome to be able to have access. Average Americans can have access just like the wealthy, and even my wealthy friends have access because it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. And so they use it along with the attorneys that they already have.
I'll never forget the first time I called my law firm and they called me back, and I was like, oh, it works, you know, and it was a landlord-tenant issue. I had a $1,000 security deposit that this woman was trying to keep of mine wrongfully, but I didn't know what to do about it, so I did what most 19-year-olds would do at the time. I called Mom, and I said, what do I do? And she was like, what did you do, you know? And so she said, you should call those legal people, you know, and so I ended up calling Prepaid Legal, and as a result of getting the consultation from the law firm and having them make a phone call on my behalf, within 3 days after the phone call from my law firm, I had a check for $1,000 from that landlord. So, you know, after that, you know, Prepaid Legal has always made me more money than I've ever spent on the cost of the service.
In the process of buying a house, we sent the paperwork over to an attorney, and the attorney called us back and said, you know, I reviewed it. There is actually about $850 in junk fees that is hidden not in the numbers but in the wording of the contract. And we said, what do we do? He says, well, go back to your mortgage person, tell him that you talked to your attorney and that you would like to take it out. And I said, well, what if he's not going to do it? And he says, well, in this case, put him on the phone with me. We came back and they talked to the mortgage person, told him that the attorney recommended us to take this out, and he didn't put up a fight and took it out and saved us, you know, not only $850, but how much would it be over the course of the 30-year-old mortgage. So it's just a powerful thing to have at your disposal so that in the future, the wealthy people are wealthy because they have attorneys to make smart decisions. So we're very lucky to have it.
I had a home in foreclosure, and I had 3 children, and I didn't know what to do. And I called into the attorney, and the attorney actually called me back within about an 8-hour period, less than that even. And the attorneys wrote one letter to pull my home out of foreclosure on a technicality that they had found. And so I was blessed to be able to stay in my home and to keep a roof over my children's head.
In 2003, I received a bill for $1998. It was over $1,600 from the IRS. And I picked up the phone, called the law firm. My tax attorney calls me back. We spent about 15 minutes on the phone. He told me exactly what I needed to do, actually introduced me to a website I didn't even know existed. And I did it. It only took me 15 minutes. You know, I thought it was going to take hours and hours and days and days. And 3.5 weeks later, I got a letter from the IRS informing me they owed me money for 1998. So I was flexing my legal muscle.
My husband bought a bike from a major sports company, and he bought a warranty for the bike. And shortly after he bought it, he had to take it in for repair. And then he had to take it in for repair again, and then a third time. And finally, after the third time of having it in for repair, every time he called to find out when could he get his bike, they had a different story for him. You know, we've got to call the manufacturer, or it'll be another 2 days, or another, next week. And 6 weeks had gone by, and he still didn't have a bike. And we're thinking he could build a new bike from scratch in 6 weeks. So we called our attorney with Prepaid Legal, and because it had been so long, Prepaid Legal faxed a letter to the company that morning, and that afternoon we got a call back from the company, and we ended up getting a brand new bike, better than the one he had before, just because we had an attorney to make that call for us.
I contracted with a nationwide moving company, and the contract provided for a payment based on the weight difference before and after loading the vehicle, and based on that I paid by cashier's check about $8,500 upon arrival in Florida, and that should have been all of it. But to our surprise, a few weeks later on, we received an invoice from that moving company asking for $420 for alleged additional services that they provided. while this was not required by the contract. So Marianne called the moving company and said we would not pay it, and they said, well, in that case, we'll put it through collection. So now we remembered we had an attorney, and the attorney, the law firm, wrote a letter of which we got a copy, and the letter was very brief and to the point. It said, you're in violation of the following federal law, which of course I didn't know what that was, but they did. There's a statutory fine of $1,000. Govern yourself accordingly. And that letter did the job. We got a response from the moving company through our attorney, and that letter said, we agree with your clients, please tell them to disregard the invoice. They will not have to pay it, and we hope we can close the file.
A trooper pulled me over and said that I was speeding. And first thing he did was, told me to get out the car and, grab his pistol and said, get out the car. I stuck my head out. I said, what you pulling me over for? He said I was speeding. So get out the car. Got out the car, he said, put my hands up on the car. I did that.
When the officer told my husband to get back into the car, he was going to be fined for speeding, and we were to follow him to the judge's office. We obeyed, followed them to the judge's office, and at that point my husband had told the judge, Your Honor, I'm not going to pay for a fine that I feel I was wrongly accused of.
Asked me if I had an attorney, and I said, you know what, I'm going to call an attorney. I have an attorney here in Texas. And she kind of chuckled and, laughing like, you from Hawaii? You have an attorney here? I said, yeah, I'm with Prepaid Legal.
And so we were able to get on the phone with our law firm in Honolulu. Within 10 minutes, they were able to contact the Texas law firm, who in turn contacted the Justice of the Peace's office. It was very, very scary because being so far away from home, not knowing what was going to happen to my husband, I really thought he was going to get arrested. And so having the peace of mind that we were able to pick up the phone and call just gave me the satisfaction that we really have access to our rights.
A few years ago, after working for a company over 5 years, my mom experienced some problem with her wrist and her hand because of her job, and the doctor took her off her job a few days, and that was fine. They paid her the little short-term disability that she had. Then a few months later, because of the job again, it started hurting so bad that she couldn't even pick up an empty tea kettle or an empty plate. So we went back to the doctor, and he took series of x-rays and took her off from the job for over a month because of the problem. But her short-term disability ran out, and so we started filing workers' comp with the company, and they refused to pay her workers' comp because they said it's not job related, even though her doctor said it was. Then we, of course, we took out her little prepaid legal membership card, and we called the attorney, and the law firm referred us to a workers' comp attorney that specialized in that area in the city where we lived in. And we came in and we met with him, and he reviewed her case, and that was it. He took care of everything from beginning to end. He didn't charge us a dime from the beginning. Took over a month to settle with the company, and when that happened, he was able to recover over $6,000 from my mom. And because she's a prepaid legal member, he only charged her 18% of that settlement instead of the normal 33rd and a third percent. So, he saved her over $1,000. So that was a lot better to be in her pocket than his pocket.
Shortly after moving to Virginia, the city that we lived in said that they're going to be delivering everyone a new, big, full-size recyclable trash can instead of just a little bin that they normally give us. And I thought that was kind of neat. So a few weeks later, I was out getting the mail, and I watched the guy deliver everyone's new, big, blue trash can on our street. I looked around, and he put one in front of every house except ours. And he was already gone, so I realized he must have missed our house. I called the city up the next day. I says, hey, I didn't get my trash can. Can I get one the next couple of days? She says, well, what's your address? And I gave her our address. She says, no, we have here that we delivered one to you yesterday. I said, no, ma'am, he may have checked my house off the list, but we didn't get a trash can. Could we get one the next couple of days? She says, no, we're going to have to do an investigation. And I said, over a trash can? She says, yeah. And about a week later, they called me back after concluding their evidently extensive investigation. And she told me that they had come to the conclusion that someone had stolen my trash can. And I told her, I said, well, man, why would someone steal my trash can? Is it possible that they just missed my house? And she says, no, so we think someone stole your trash can. We interviewed the dispatcher and the driver, and that's what we've come up with. And she said, well, we can get you a new trash can. We just need you to contact the police department, file a police report, and fax us a copy of it. And I said, I'm not calling the police about a trash can I never got. She says, well, the only other way you can get one is to buy a new one, and they're $80. And I said, I'm not buying a new trash can either. And she says, well, those are the only two ways you can get a trash can. I told her, I said, well, those are the only two ways you're telling me I can get a trash can. I'm going to contact my attorney to find out what my rights are. Hung up with her, picked the phone, contacted our law firm there in Virginia, and it wasn't a long conversation. It was only a trash can situation. But about a couple hours later, after my attorney got the information, contacted the city, my doorbell rings, I open the door, and there's a guy standing there from the city next to a big blue trash can.
My car got vandalized, and the headlights and the sunroof was damaged to where it needed to be replaced. So I had car insurance, been with the same company for many years, thought it'd be handled great, turned the car in. I had rental reimbursement on my policy, so that made it pretty easy. So I had the rental car, and just the car's in there getting fixed and thinking everything's going well, and all of a sudden one day I get a call from the body shop where the car was. And he said, well, I just want to advise you that your car would have been ready like over a week ago. But I had to send back, it was a second set of headlights that I've had to send back to them. And I said, I was really confused. I said, what do you mean? Isn't it new headlights? What was wrong with them? And he said, well, the brackets were broken. And I said, how's that possible? He said, well, aren't they new? And he said, no, they're actually from a junkyard. That's what they do. And I had never dealt with this before, and I said, really, that's what they do? I pay all this money into my car insurance. How are they using used parts? You know, my car was only a couple years old. I bought it new, you know, my first new car, buying my new car with 30 miles on it. So you try to protect it, and I didn't think they were going to put these used parts on. So I called my car insurance company, and of course, like you hear all the time, they said, well, that's our policy. So I hung up, pretty upset, and I thought, well, I have my prepaid legal plan. Let me call my provider law firm and see if they can help me. And they definitely did. After I explained it to the law firm, told them what happened, they asked me some questions about my policy and then said, what would you like us to do? They could have written a letter or made a phone call, and they actually suggested a phone call because it really had to happen pretty quickly. And it was great because this was a Friday. And they reached the regional office of my car insurance company. I got a phone call back from them. I don't know what the attorney said, must have been good, but they called me back and said that they were sending an adjuster out to the body shop on Monday to look at my car. And Monday morning, after the adjuster was there, I got a phone call. He said, well, we've decided to authorize a supplemental check for $300 for your car. So that was the difference to put the new parts on. And I was just really excited. I couldn't, you know, I think the long-term effects were bigger than just the $300. You know, it was my new car, and it was, you know, I bought it new, and now I knew that it was just fixed better. And that here's this car insurance that we pay all this money to, and it was great to know that my provider law firm could get that done for me.